Intergovernmental organizations and central banks have spent the last decade building a unified digital architecture for money. This emergent financial system is characterized by the rollout of central bank digital currencies, tokenized real-world assets, and biometric payment rails. When these institutions encounter populations that refuse to adopt this architecture, they classify the behavior uniformly. In contemporary policy literature, opposition to programmable money is diagnosed as a temporary transitional friction or a localized paranoid backlash that public relations and managed rollouts can effectively neutralize. Treating financial resistance as a vanishing past overlooks its role as an evolutionary response. Viewing these behaviors as mere friction creates a massive blind spot in modern economic foresight. Michael R. Williams argues that resistance has coalesced into the Remnant Financial System. This is a parallel infrastructure that is both durable and deliberate. This counterpart operates alongside the dominant digital order, but it relies on entirely different rules of trust and exchange. Over time, it is diverging sharply from the state-backed infrastructure. The remnant is highly structured. It spans a massive spectrum of practice, from individuals preserving analog cash and physical gold, all the way to decentralized networks running self-custodied cryptographic ledgers. These parallel ecosystems are growing. Unless analysts rigorously map their specific topologies, policymakers will continue to be blindsided by the accelerating flight of capital and participants. Williams maps this topology using a three-dimensional framework. First, motive of separation, ranging from voluntary withdrawal to adversarial opposition. Second, technological substrate, spanning analog materials to cryptographic ledgers. Third, mode of interaction, plotting cooperative symbiosis to active competition. Plotting this framework reveals distinct clusters. Traditional behaviors like physical cash and hard metallic money anchor firmly in the voluntary and analog quadrant. At the opposite extreme, state-level de-dollarization maps to the highly adversarial, mixed-substrate, block-aligned configuration. Plotting these behaviors confirms they are highly rational adaptations. Each configuration occupies a specific niche within a bifurcated financial environment. Populations do not spontaneously migrate. They are driven there by distinct causal mechanisms called emergence pathways. First is the adoption friction pathway. Populations are forced into the remnant because state infrastructure has failed them, or local institutions have collapsed entirely. Second is the legitimacy failure pathway. This occurs when the public experiences a generalized collapse in institutional trust, prompting them to seek alternatives out of caution. The third and most volatile mechanism is the design failure cascade. This pathway is triggered when specific, aggressive policy choices instantly force a mass exit. State regulators frequently assume alternative finance grows entirely on its own momentum, but central banks are actively engineering this expansion through aggressive design choices. The historical record details exactly how these policy triggers operate. In 2013, the confiscation of private bank accounts in Cyprus acted as a freeze-and-seize design failure, permanently catalyzing wealth migration into decentralized ledgers. India's 2016 demonetization forced an immediate invalidation of physical currency. Instead of driving digital adoption, it deeply entrenched societal reliance on physical cash and gold. During the 2022 Canadian trucker protests, the government weaponized the banking system to freeze dissident accounts. This directly correlated with a surge in crypto adoption. Nigeria rolled out the digital e-naira while simultaneously restricting cash withdrawals. This attempt to force adoption backfired, causing a massive spike in parallel market activity. These episodes yield a consistent empirical baseline. Weaponizing financial rails via surveillance and programmability guarantees the acceleration of parallel financial systems. When parallel systems grow too large, the emergent system manages the threat through capture and decay. We observe this in crypto. The institutional subset, like regulated stablecoins and exchange-traded products, is absorbed into the state's perimeter. Once captured, they surrender their remnant utility. Meanwhile, the uncaptured, self-custody portion fails to scale but becomes hyper-resilient and deeply adversarial. This dynamic exists in the analog world too. Tokenized gold serves the state ledger. Physical bullion in private vaults preserves wealth outside the digital perimeter. Regulation filters out the institutional capital, leaving behind a highly crystallized, structurally hostile core that no longer attempts to integrate. A persistent utopian narrative suggests that complementary currencies or crypto networks will eventually scale up to completely overthrow the fiat system. The evidence does not support this outcome. The most probable macroeconomic trajectory over the next 2 decades is a condition Williams terms structural decoupling. Under structural decoupling, the emergent and remnant systems serve 2 distinct populations. They operate on separate infrastructures, connected by virtually zero shared rules. The future of money has reached a point of permanent structural bifurcation. This divides the population into those who accept programmable surveillance and those who opt out entirely. For central bank administrators, the calculus is straightforward. Exercising restraint on catalytic design choices, specifically excessive surveillance and programmable money, is the only effective lever to slow this decoupling. Institutional professionals and technologists must stop treating alternative finance as a temporary compliance glitch. Cross-system interfacing is now a permanent structural reality. For the ordinary citizen, remaining unreflective carries systemic danger. Defaulting to participation in a single, state-mandated financial system exposes you entirely to its specific design failures. In a structurally bifurcated global order, cross-system diversification has become a baseline requirement for individual operational survival. Diversifying across systems provides the only safeguard against the unique risks of the dominant digital order.